Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for today's AutoTracks webinar. My name is Kayla Priest. I'm on the CINC Live Events team. Happy that you're here today, either with me live or watching this later as a recording on cincommunity.com. Today's AutoTracks webinar is all about the ins and outs of AutoTracks. What is it? How do I use it? How do I implement it? What is it good for? I'm going to be first just kind of talking about what AutoTracks is, so we're all on the same page about what it's capable of, what it's meant for. And then we'll actually get into the platform that I have up here and look at the ins and outs of how to get them set up and how to use them. So I do have some additional information up on my other screen. So if you do see me looking over here, it is just to make sure that I am talking about the right information. Because I want to make sure that I cover it all and don't leave anything out. So I did, if you're here with me live, just put in a link to actually the help document that I have up on help.cincpro.com, which is our help center, because I want to first start with the three different types of AutoTracks, because while AutoTracks at its core is a scheduled communications device or method for leads, there are three different types of AutoTracks that might kind of get your brain spinning on what's possible. Before I do that, though, let's talk about CINC history a little bit, but I promise it, well, I hope it won't be boring. I can't promise it won't bore you, but it is interesting to kind of think about where we were and where we are. So when I joined CINC 5 years ago almost, we had a feature called drip campaigns. And so if you've been with CINC for a while, you maybe remember that. If you're a newer client, maybe you only know AutoTracks, but drip campaigns were called that because they did just that. They dripped content out onto leads. If you are a person that exists in the year 2022, you know what a drip campaign is, even if you've never used one, because you get them all the time. You buy a product, you sign up to get more information, you attended an event, whatever happens, you then get put into the database of that artist, company, person, and then you begin to receive emails periodically from them, whether it's about upcoming events, to get your feedback, to send you valuable information, or a lot of times to send you information you don't care about. How I continue to get emails from companies that I bought something from like 10 years ago, I don't know, but that is a drip campaign. They got your information, you are in their database, and they are sending you periodic information as an email, or now increasingly also as a text. So AutoTracks is the same thing. It's just an updated version of our drip campaigns, because drip campaigns lacked some really crucial capabilities, mainly being that we could not do date-based communication. So you were not able to do an effective holiday campaign. So with AutoTracks, we were able to do that. We were also able to do some additional triggers. So we'll talk about that later, about how to start and stop an AutoTrack and what to do when it stops. And we also got a nice redesign of what's up on my screen now, which is the dashboard that gives us some advanced analytics about our campaigns. So that is why I'd say now about 2.5 years ago, we released AutoTracks. Maybe it's even 3 years ago at this point, and we continue to push updates to it often. So let's go ahead and talk about those three types of AutoTracks. Again, that'll kind of get your brain working about what's possible here. And this is what I'm going to just check on my screen to make sure I'm touching on all the right points. Our first and most popular is the sequence campaigns. And so these are great for current leads or even your past clients. And it's called that type because it's communications in a row. And I also just want to apologize, I don't know how loud she's being. My dog is behind me and snoring, and so if you hear that in the background, that's my dog Gracie. She is a very effective snorer. So the sequence campaigns can be used for one-off emails or texts, or it can also be used for kind of re-engagement of leads. So essentially it is, I'm going to send this email on this day, 4 days from then, I'm going to send a text, a month from then, I'm going to send an email, and it's a sequence of events or touches. So when we're talking about drip campaigns and AutoTracks, touches are any of those communications that go out. It is going to be a text or an email. Now, there is a third type of touch, and that is not communication out to your lead. It's actually to the agent the lead is assigned to, and it's a reminder. So 3 types of touches are texts and emails go out to the lead, and the reminder goes to us as the agent. So let's talk about our second type of AutoTrack, and that's the calendar AutoTrack. And that's what I told you that we could not previously do with our old feature drip campaigns. With AutoTracks, we can do those calendar-based campaigns, and that's going to be great for our holidays. It's going to be great for if you want to send something on a certain date. For example, following up to check in after a home purchase or sale, saying congratulations on your anniversary of your sale. Again, holidays, because it's can go out on that certain date. And we do provide holiday templates already in here for you for both US based holidays and Canadian based holidays. And then our third is going to be our checklist AutoTrack type. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It is a checklist of tasks. So again, if you've been with CINC for a while, you maybe are aware of our plans feature. In fact, we can see that over here on the left menu of my screen, plans. Plans is an older feature that we used to really use heavily, but it's pretty complicated. I'm going to be completely frank with you. It is complicated. And that is why when we decided to move in the AutoTracks direction and develop this feature, we decided to allow these checklist campaign types to replace plans. Now, plans are still live. You can still use them, but again, they're complicated. So if you're looking for a way to really streamline internal processes in your office, so sometimes this checklist type can be helpful, is anything that has like a first task and an end task, and a lot of things in between need to follow in order. So in other words, I see this used a lot when we are doing a contract to close. So I have my clients that have signed their contract. What are the steps that I have to take to get that closed? On the flip side, it could be a new listing. So I have the listing signed. What do I have to do to get that live on the MLS? Other times we see it for maybe new employee onboarding. So they sign their, contract, or they have their start date. What do I have to do to get everything ready for them in terms of training? What needs to be at their desk? Do they need an email created, a phone number, all that good stuff? So you can really use that for any type of task list that you have of things to do. That is checklist. So you will most likely work with sequence most often, but you do of course have the option to do those calendar campaigns or those checklist campaigns. So that is kind of a brief overview of what AutoTracks is. Let's go ahead and take a look at how they work here in the platform, and then we'll start talking about how to use these and when it's good to use. But before we really talk about that, it makes sense to have an overview of what it looks like in the platform. Now, if you are wanting to follow along on your own computer, I'll tell you how I got here. So when you log into your site, you probably land on the leads dashboard. And I'll make a brief note that this right here is a testing and training site primarily. So testing and training, meaning that we use it for webinars like this to train new employees, to test to see how features work. If something's broken, this is one of many that we have that we use internally at CINC. This is the one that we use for training. So if you do see lots of like no email and lots of 555 numbers and lots of weird names like Jane Smith, that is why. This is a live site and it functions just like your CINC site does. It just is for testing and training only. I just like to point that out because sometimes I get some odd names that will come across here. So from here, to get to our AutoTracks, we're going to go to our automations menu over here about halfway down on our left. And that automatically dumps us into our AutoTracks dashboard. So just like you have a leads dashboard that has all of your information about your leads, your current clients, your past clients, anyone in your database, we also have an AutoTracks dashboard, and that is what we're looking at right now. Now, the first time you hit it, if you have never seen this before, it can be pretty overwhelming because there is a lot of information here. But what's really wonderful about this is that everything is very segmented and really easy to learn. And when we get into actually setting up the AutoTrack, we're using a really great feature called a wizard setup. In other words, it walks us through each step, start to finish. Another great advancement that we made when we started the AutoTracks feature. So we can make sure that we don't kind of leave you hanging, and so you always know what the next step is. So Mark is saying there's only 2 in there by default. I'm going to show you how you can get additional campaigns here. There are a bunch here, again, because we use this for testing and for training, and so there's a lot even of copies that are here multiple times. So you never probably want yours to look as messy as this, but I'm going to show you how you can start to use additional ones, either ones that you have created yourself or using our CINC templates and going from there. So when we first log in, let's take a look at what this means here. We've got 7 campaigns total. 3 of those are active, 4 of those are paused. And as you can see, it's easy to tell which are which because we've got it really large here along with the campaign itself, telling us that these are active and then these are paused. All that means is that active, they're actively ready to go out to leads. Paused means that we have said, I don't want this to go out to leads right now because maybe I'm making some changes, I'm making some edits, and it's just not quite ready yet. But whenever you are ready to use it, it's really easy to change the status here. Disabling and delete, those are similar to pause. Well, disable is similar to pause. Delete, of course, means that we're going to take it out of here completely. So let's take some additional looks. I might have to do a refresh. I think I clicked too many times. Okay, and we're back. So let's take a look now at this first one here. We see the title of the AutoTrack. We see that this is a CINC template. That's why it starts with the word CINC. It is for re-engagement for buyers. So in other words, a buyer maybe that I previously spoke to, but maybe they ghosted me and now I want to re-engage them. Maybe they went out and started looking at homes, but then decided that they wanted to wait a little bit. So anyone that we want to re-engage, bring back to the site, bring back into conversation with me. So we can see that this campaign is 41 days long. We can see that it is public, meaning that any other agent on the site would have the ability to use this as well. And we can see that it is actually owned by me. So the name beside whether it's public or private is simply the agent that owns it or started it. So moving beyond the status, since we've already taken a look there, we have our analytics. We can see the open rate and the click rate. Now remember, this is a testing site, so these actually go out to leads very infrequently, and when they do, they often have a bad email address because this is a testing site. So these are pretty low numbers. You will see better numbers than yours, but we can actually click and take a look at some of the information here. So we can see currently that there are 9 leads on this. And notice when I hovered over it, my mouse changed, telling me that I can actually click on this and see the leads that are currently signed up for this campaign. And we can see their progress, the date it was assigned, and their individual analytics as well. Now, this is again a feature that was new, an improvement in AutoTracks. We can also click instead to see which leads have actually completed it, meaning that they went through all the touches. And remember, touches are texts, emails, and reminders. We can see that over the 41-day duration of this campaign, it has 7 touches and 9 steps. We'll take a look at what those actually are in a moment. So let's say I land on my AutoTracks dashboard here, and I'm ready to start using a campaign. I want to use a CINC template to start sending information out to my leads. So I'm going to kind of get on my soapbox for a little here and just give you some things to think about before you start using AutoTracks. First is they have to be pretty targeted, meaning they have to be pretty specific. Ask yourself this: if you want to start targeting buyers with some information, does every buyer benefit or alternatively find value in the same information? No, because I would say all buyers have different situations, but there are some subsets of buyers that would find the same information helpful, valuable. They would like to receive that information. That would be first-time buyers. People who are buying their first home. It could be people who are currently renting. It could be investors who are, buying investment properties. So you have to think, what's the subset of this lead group that would benefit from this information? Because if you are turning on a campaign for all buyers, you are really setting yourself up for some negative results. And by that, I mean, you're sending information to people because you think it's good, you think it's valuable, but it really doesn't apply to them because it doesn't speak to their specific situation. So they then stop opening your emails, which means that they are telling inadvertently their email service provider, hey, emails that come from this person, I don't find them valuable. The more that happens, the more it looks like you are sending spam. While you are here thinking, yeah, I put them on this AutoTrack and I think it's great, they're not even opening it and telling, again, inadvertently, their email service provider like Gmail, like Yahoo, like, iCloud, whatever their email may be, they are telling it, it's not interesting to me. And it starts to look like you're sending spam. What happens when it starts to look like you're sending spam is those emails start getting marked as spam. So now the lead doesn't even have the opportunity to open it because they're going to their spam. What happens then is that the email service provider says, all emails from this URL, from this person, are probably spam. And then you're getting dinged and the email service providers kind of report that they keep secret from us that this looks like spam. And so what I'm trying to kind of drive home here is that you can think you're doing the right thing by engaging with this information, but we can inadvertently have some negative results because email service providers are really harsh on those spam filters these days. There's a lot of legislation, that really makes it difficult to reach the inbox these days with like privacy laws and making it really easy for people to opt out. And so we just have to be really strategic in the content that we use from here. Because while yes, it's great and it's at your fingertips and it's really easy to use, it can have those negative effects that we really don't want. Because when it starts to look like we're sending spam, you think, oh, it's just the drip campaign, it's just the AutoTracks. However, it's also then going to affect the property alerts that go out. And those are the #1 driver of traffic back to your site. So again, we just have to be really strategic with the content that we send out from here. So let's go ahead and use one of those really specific examples like a first-time buyer. And you're thinking, well, how do I know if they're a first-time buyer? Well, they actually answer that question when they are registering for the site, but even better, you can find that out when you have your first conversation with someone. And so I find it really helpful to consider that AutoTracks are going to be something that I use 99% of the time when I've spoken to someone and I know their situation. And the more you have that situation, the more you might think this is a great opportunity for an AutoTrack. So let's say I want to create one from scratch, or I want to see if CINC has a first-time buyer campaign. We do not, as far as I know, but I'm just going to use that as an example. My first step when I come here would be clicking on to start/edit an AutoTrack. Here are blank ones up here for you to create your own content. So say you scroll through here and you don't see a first-time buyer campaign, you would come here and say, okay, here's a calendar type, here's a checklist type. This must be my sequence type, and you can start your own. This is also where you could take content that you've previously been using on another platform and bring it in here and create your own from scratch. But here are our CINC templates right below that. So this is where you can get those holiday campaigns, the re-engagement campaigns. You'll see that we have a ton of different campaigns in here. Our newest campaigns are, or newest templates, I should say, are the monthly market report and the new lead market report. We've seen a really high open rate with those. And Jim, it looks like that's going to play into our question that you want to ask me later. But you can see that we have them divided up in between what would be a good buyer campaign, nurture campaign, listing or seller campaigns, and even for past clients. So I really should have used an example of a template that CINC has in here. So we are just going to pretend, if you'll indulge me here for a second, that our, I want to use the re-engagement campaign we already looked at. I want to use the re-engagement campaign here as our example. So we're going to pretend, again, indulge me, that this is our first time buyer campaign. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And here's just a very brief overview of the touches. Remember, we've got 2 reminders, 3 emails, 4 texts. So those are all broken down here. And because this is a sequence type, we have things sending on certain days. First day, it's assigned, second day, 16th day. So about 2 weeks in, 28 days. So about a month in, truly a month in. And so this is just where you can get a brief overview of what's in this template. If we want to even take a closer look at this, we can actually click on the subject of our emails and see what those emails are going to say. We can do that for our text. And then for our reminder, we can just kind of see a brief overview of that if I hover over it. Now, keep in mind that you can edit all of this content. So just because the template starts this way, it does not mean that's how you have to use it. I'm going to walk you through that wizard setup that I mentioned earlier and show you how you can make those changes. So speaking of the wizard setup, here are our steps. We're on step 1 right now, and it's going to walk us through these 4 steps. That's our wizard walkthrough. So if we say, yes, this is the one that I want to use, I'm going to click copy this template. And that is what makes it so later we could delete this if we wanted, because we copy the template, meaning that we don't actually edit the template itself, meaning the template remains there kind of pristine for us to start with later if we mess up and need to fix a mistake. So we can change the name here. It looks like I actually am using a copy already, so I'm just going to put a 2 there. So later I can go in and clean it up and actually take this one out. So again, we keep that dashboard nice and clean. So you'll notice we're in our second step of the template. It's where we edit the template itself. So we can do choose the lead type that this is for. Now this is a CINC template. It told us it's for buyers. That's what's already checked. But if we were creating our own, perhaps later, and it was only for sellers, we can say, make it only for sellers. And what this does is it makes sure that we can't send a campaign that does not speak to that lead's situation to them, meaning that if I have it marked as seller, it would not go to people who are only buyers. If I wanted to do everyone, of course, I can select everyone, but that is very few and far between. You'd want to use that. We can also then send it to someone who's both a buyer and a seller, or if I'm a team lead or a site owner, I could also send this to recruits, meaning people that I'm hoping will join my team. But this one's just for buyers, so I'm going to leave it as buyer. I can also then select what time these communications go out. Do I want them to be 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. to keep really strict business hours? Do I want it to be 8 to 8 because I'm okay with things going out a little bit later? Do I want to include Saturdays and Sundays? We can uncheck that if we want this to only go out Monday through Friday. And then we can skip holidays, meaning if we want to make sure that things don't go out on Christmas Day, because that can be annoying to a lead to have some, family time, for example, interrupted with what can be seen as like a marketing text or email. We could skip holidays. Now we get to make our changes. So right here, we can change what day this goes out. So if I clicked and edited the day, I can say send this out on day 2. Now look at what it's done. Remember when I said this is really easy to use, even though there's a lot of information, it's told me, hey, there's an error, this day already exists. So we will never let you do something that would not work here. Now, if you got eagle eyes, you probably see the red later on down the line. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. But first, let's finish talking about how we edit this individual touch. We see that this is an email scheduled to send at 8 a.m. on day 1. And then we see a little bit of the content. But if I want to edit it or see more of it, all I have to do is click my little pencil icon here. And this opens up my edit window where I can change it to a text reminder, which you probably wouldn't use very often. Change something from an email or text to a reminder, but it's there in case you want to. And you'll see that we have really easy edit access here. This is your kind of formatting opportunities laid out here. Now you can use video messaging in our AutoTracks. So if you are also using the CINC video messaging feature, you can put those here into your AutoTracks. But if you say, I would never use the word hey with a lead, you could come in and you could change that to hi or whatever you would prefer to say. Once you make your changes, you can click to preview the email just to see what it's going to look like. And then we can scroll down and look at the schedule. So we could say, because this is the first touch, do we want this to send immediately after it's applied? Or do we want to send it at a certain time, like for example, 10 a.m.? So when we make that change, we would click update. And now we can see on day 1, that email is now scheduled for 10 a.m. So as we scroll down, I'll show you what editing a text looks like. You'll see it's a little easier. There's none of that formatting because of course we can't do that with text. But let's go ahead and look at this here, this error on day 40. Notice it tells us that AutoTracks texts and emails can't be scheduled to send more than 1 per hour. Adjust the timing of the highlighted text and email steps. So we see here that this text was scheduled to send at 11 a.m. And then this text was scheduled to send 1 minute after the previous step is completed. However, this is telling us that we cannot send touches on the same day 2 and 1 hour. And that is to save you from being, again, looked at as spam and to be throttled. So sometimes when we send touches too close together, it looks bad to those providers. So we would need to just come in here and make the change. And you'll see that what we have here is the ability to send the message a certain time after the previous step is completed. So we would just need to actually up this. And now that red error has cleared out. I saw some questions come in. So I may have missed it, but does day 1 equal day 1 of enablement? Yes. So that's a great question. If I start it today and I have this set for day 1, this would go out that day. If I wanted to wait and say, I don't want that first touch to go out the same day I turn it on, that's when you can come in and move that day back to say day 2 or day 3. So that way, if it was a follow-up for something where you didn't want it to seem like super automated, then you could actually delay that. So this sequence campaign works from day 1 being the day that it's turned on. So that's a great question, Mark. And then Mike, are AutoTracks text limited to 320 characters like manual texting? Yes, the same character limit will apply here. And that's simply so your messages don't get snipped and send as different texts to your lead, because that can be kind of confusing because they will sometimes come out of order. So that's just why that character limit exists, in case you were curious why. But yes, it'll be the same here. So as you can see, pretty easy to edit the touches that are already here. We can also add an additional step to this last day. And then we can also add a new day that would make this campaign a little longer. But maybe we add a touch like this, and then we want it to go out earlier. We don't want it to be the last one. You may have noticed that when I hover over the actual content of these messages, my mouse turns into this little hand. So it would be really easy to add a touch down at the bottom and then move it to a different day or a different step in the process. So that is our second step where we can edit the template itself. So we'll go ahead and click continue. And it's telling us that we have to now look at the triggers and permissions involved. Did I say that right? Permissions. It sounded weird when it came out of my mouth. So it's saying that you'll review and finalize the steps in your entire AutoTrack after your settings are applied. So cool. We're going to go to our next step, which is triggers. Now I mentioned triggers earlier. So let's go ahead and talk about what this means, get into it a little deeper. So we have both start and stop triggers. So it makes sense for us to start with start. So this is essentially, how do I use automation to turn this campaign on? This is where it gets really powerful, because we create that first time buyer campaign one time, and then we can say, anytime I apply the label first time buyer to this lead, I want the campaign for that to turn on. So as you can see, this one right now is set up for the just looking label. And again, this is that re-engagement campaign. But if we're getting more granular with it, more specific, investor label could trigger the investor campaign to start. First time buyer could trigger that first time buyer campaign to start. So you're really, even though I hate the saying, killing two birds with one stone, you're not only labeling that person with their situation, which then you can go back later, filter by that label, and really target those people in those specific scenarios with that information that speaks to them. But we also have the ability to start the campaign, which is the second stone in the saying, at the same time. We do have other start triggers and options, but the others you just won't use as often. The labels really make the most sense. So the pipeline stage is there, but again, I mean, I asked you the question right off the bat, like, does every buyer have the same situation? And it's the same with pipeline stage. Does everyone in contacted have the same pipeline stage? Not really, or have the same situation. They do have the same pipeline stage, but not the same situation. The kind of caveat to that is potentially the sold pipeline stage. So that could kick off our holiday campaign, because I think holiday campaigns are more meaningful when they come from someone you actually know. Sold could trigger that follow-up for like a congratulations, 1 year in your house type of deal. Landing pages. So if you do have a specific landing page being used, you can say anyone that registers on that landing page, turn a campaign on for them. And then a custom field is where we are able to do those follow-up campaigns, especially for our custom fields like anniversary, purchase date, birthday, those types of dates. And then finally, source. But again, does everyone from a source have the same situation? Not really. So that one you just won't use very often unless you have a very specific source that you're generating. But like Google, everyone has a different situation. So you can choose your start trigger. On the same time, you'll also want to choose your stop trigger, because you don't want to say, remember that Kayla's on that campaign and you need to go turn it off. It just won't work. So you can select your trigger to stop it as well. And this time you're more likely to use that pipeline stage to stop. And that could mean if this is that buyer re-engagement campaign, or even the first time buyer campaign, to keep using that scenario, you would say, anytime I'm out actually showing that person, or anytime I set an appointment with that person, they no longer need to get that information. So I would want to stop it at whatever touch it's on. So then we can say what happens when it completes. Either it runs through all the touches or the stop trigger stops it. What do I want to do? Do I want to start another auto track? Do I want to restart this one? You probably won't use that very much. Do I want to apply a label? Again, I don't have a great use case for that. So most often you're going to say take no further action. However, for your holiday campaigns, this is where you can go ahead and turn on for additional years. Currently, I believe we have through the year 2025 available. So once you have your triggers picked, you can move to permissions and allow team members to access. So for example, if you have a marketing person who's going to be setting these up, they would then give access to all the agents who are going to want to use that. You don't have to do this step if you're just creating it for yourself, but it is here where you can give them the ability to actually copy it and then use their own copy of this, or they can edit the template or your copy of the template itself, or you can make them the owner. So that's especially good if you do have a marketing person, maybe who leaves the team and you need to give them over to someone else. But again, this step is optional. This is just for if you want to allow access from other team members. Now we're going to save, and this is our final step of our wizard setup, where we just give a double check and make sure that everything is as we want it. This is where I get on my soapbox again and just make sure that you absolutely read every single thing before you turn it on. Read every touch, read every text, every email, make sure that it says exactly what you want. Spell check, grammar check. You can use Grammarly. The free version of Grammarly is going to, be really easy for you to use and check all of that. Also make sure if you're using holidays that we don't have something that says like happy, something that maybe is not a happy holiday. You never just want to let someone else be in full control of your content. Read everything so you don't have a surprise and have an upset lead or you get upset later. Read everything before you send it out. This is your opportunity to just do that last final check. And then when you say, yep, I like all of this, we're going to save and exit. And now it's saved and it would automatically be in the paused status now because we have not published it. So we make sure that it's paused until you click to publish. So you make sure that you really want to use this before it goes out. So if I'm saying, yes, I absolutely want to go ahead and start using this, I'm going to publish it. And now here it is, that webinar test 2 on my AutoTracks dashboard, active and ready to go. If I had not hit publish, it would be here as paused. Again, I could go in and edit it and then set it as public and active, but we have to do that if it's paused. So a couple of quick things that I typically get questions on, and then I saw a question come into the Q&A. If the start trigger is put on a new campaign, is it retroactive, meaning does it turn the campaign on for anyone who previously already had that label applied? And the answer is no, it will not trigger retroactively. It will only be for new label applications going forward. Same for all those other triggers like pipeline stage, like source. It is going to be for going forward once it's active. I will show you in just a moment how to apply it manually, just in case you don't want to set up a trigger. But first, let me get to Mike's question. Can the AutoTracks submit or send edit to leads triggered by source? It could. So for example, let me actually open this up. Let me see if I remember. So everyone's site has this link, which is your URL, in this case, cincprotraining.com/app. And so everyone's site has this, just your URL/app. And what you could do, Mike, is you could start your own campaign and actually have a touch for a text triggered off of that source and have the touch be a text to have this link in it. And then that would be a way to invite them to download the Edit app. And let me know if I'm misunderstanding what you're asking, but I think that should accomplish what you're trying to do. Great question. Okay, so let's look at today. Let me know if there's anything else I need to go over or restate. Okay, so let's take a look at how to manually apply this campaign. So I'm going to go to my leads. Now you could do this, and I'll show you how to do it retroactively for anyone who maybe already has a label. But first, I want to show you how to do it one-off in case you didn't want to set up a trigger. So let's say let's use Walker right up top. I wanted to apply this campaign to this lead. I would just click into his profile, go to the AutoTracks tab here, and you'll notice that he actually already does have a campaign active. It's the holiday one. And we can see that it was triggered by the new lead. I actually don't really like to trigger things by new lead. Again, this is a test site, so that's why that is. And you should understand by now, I don't like to trigger things for new lead. Again, remember too, I think that holiday campaigns are way more impactful for people you actually have already spoken to. But let's say I wanted to turn on another campaign for this person. I would use this plus sign. And then it's going to show you what you have available here to apply to this person. It's only going to show the campaigns here that match this lead type. Remember, we talked about buyers, sellers, buyer/sellers, recruits. It's only going to show you what you can apply to this person here. And so we would just select it and apply it. You could also come here and actually see what campaign someone's already on. And you can see what step of the process they're on. 0 through 9 steps completed, triggered manually by whoever triggered it. It would have, if it had stopped, why. And then we can see the steps here. Now it'll show that it's active. If I say, whoops, I didn't want to do that. My 3 little dots over here are where I can actually click and say, whoopsie, and just take it off, and it'll show as deleted. Now, another quick way to tell if someone's on an auto track is this little icon here on the dashboard itself. So we can see in the price city column, Walker is currently on an auto track because that little blue A is blue. Meanwhile, Erica below, it's grayed out because the auto tracks are inactive. So let me show you what that looks like. It just means that they were previously on a campaign, but as you can see, all of these are completed or deleted. And that's why it's grayed out, because nothing is active. Mike is saying, so Mike is saying that he manually right now sends the Edit app here by clicking on the profile or on the little crown icon in the profile. So you could automate that with that option that I showed you before. So we're doing really well on time. Let me show you really quickly if you did want to mass apply an auto track to a big group of leads that maybe you already have labeled as first time buyer, but you start that campaign and you want to retroactively apply it to those people. I might have to fib a little bit. You might have to imagine with me again, just so I can have people that actually have, a good label on them, but I'll show you how to do it. So let's see what this label is. Bad phone. Okay, so I'm going to go to labels and I'm going to use this bad phone label, and we're going to pretend that's my first time buyer label. So instead of going through individually and clicking into each one of these people and turning this campaign on for them, I can actually use this list and mass turn on this auto track by applying the label. Now, what might be difficult is if they already have the label on them, what can I do? So what I would do is I would use my mass actions button to apply a label to these people. And I would make it something like, something that's not a trigger already. And so maybe I might even create a label just for this. But I might, add a label saying, I'm just going to use coming soon as an example for this. So if I could apply that label to them, yes, great. I can then use my mass actions to remove this label from everyone. And so Mark, this might get you halfway to your question about, is there a way to mass delete labels? I could then remove that first time buyer label from them. Again, in this instance, it's going to be removing the bad phone number. So hopefully you're following along with what I'm doing. I put that additional label on them so I could go ahead and find them again. But then I'm taking the label that we made our trigger off. So once that label has been removed, now I'm going to reset all just so I can make it come full circle. I really hope that I remember the label that I that I put on them to find them. I think I did. Maybe this one. We're going to say it was this one. So I'm going to then filter by that label that I just added to them, go back to mass actions, apply the label, and use the trigger label in this case. So that would be that. So quite a few steps, and you won't have to use that very often, but it's there if you need it to mass apply a campaign retroactively. And then Mark, so if you're trying to remove an abundance of imported uncategorized labels, what you need, sir, is to go to labels and click manage labels. And this is your label manager. And so this is where you can select your labels and delete. I have not been called a hero in a long time, so I appreciate that very much. But that's what you need right there. All right, so it looks like I don't have any other questions, and that is really the overview that you need for AutoTracks. Right now, you have learned today what an AutoTrack does, what it's capable of, how to set one up, how to edit it, how to create your own. If you have any questions while you're setting it up, the CINC Help Center is a really wonderful resource. help.cincpro.com is that, or you can click the help button up in the top right, right here. That'll take you there. So that is available 24/7 if you need some help when CINC is not open, but you can always call CINC support. Just click your name in the upper right and click tech support, and that is their email and phone number, and you can give them a call or an email and just ask for some assistance. They are not just there for, hey, I think this is not working correctly, but you can just say, hey, did I set this AutoTrack up correctly? What does that AutoTrack feature mean? And they will be a really great help for you. Of course, you have access to a ton of past recordings on cincommunity.com/recordings, where you could go in and just watch some past automations webinars, which is what we're talking about. Typically, I talk about behavioral messaging in this session, but I wanted to really feature and really heavily cover AutoTracks itself instead today. So if you do want some additional information, about behavioral messaging, you can have that there or look that up as well in the CINC Help Center. So Mike is asking, do you recommend a label called stop to end a campaign or some other way to stop it besides time? I would like to stay away from putting unnecessary labels on people. So stop to me is not a great stop trigger, but this is a great question because I get to explain why. That just is a label that really doesn't tell us anything. And I like all my labels to really tell me something about that lead. So I prefer to use the pipeline as our stop trigger, just simply because then I'm already having to move the pipeline stage anyway as something happens. So why would I also not want that to be what ends it, if that makes sense? So I would heavily rely on using the pipeline stage as what we stop it with. So if that will not work for you though, and you do need to do it with a label, I would want to know like why I stopped it instead. And so I would use like a specific label for a specific instance, like why are you stopping it? Because that's going to maybe give you some just more, it's going to keep things cleaner. So all your labels would still mean something. Now, if you're saying that still won't work for me, I really don't like that, and you have to use stop, you can, but you can do that. If it is a bogus lead, meaning not a good price point, I personally don't think that is a bad lead, not a good price point. You can always refer it to someone else. You can just nurture them, keep sending them property alerts, because why not? Maybe their budget changes one day. I personally wouldn't do anything with that. I have spoken to many people that have closed someone that registered as Bugs Bunny or Santa Claus. So I consider a bogus lead someone that has given me a bad number and a bad email. There's no way for me to get in touch with them. Trash those people instead. And then they're not in your database. Not for us. Again, I would just refer them to someone else, because there's an agent for everybody out there somewhere. I just am, a big believer in just hold on to them. You don't know what happens, but if you really need to get rid of them, refer them out and get a referral fee for it. I like making easy money. Mark, if they're not letting you delete them, it could be because they're from the import. So call support and just see if they can give you a hand with that. They may be able to kind of delete them on your behalf. Good luck. All right, everybody, it looks like that is all the questions. So just a big thank you for spending the past 55 minutes or so with me. I really appreciate your time and all your great questions. Thanks to all of everyone that asked a question today. It really makes it more fun for me, because I get to dig back in my brain and help and make sure I can remember what's going on. I do hope that you will join me for some other webinars that are upcoming, or even better, I hope you'll join me in person at CINC University, or that I see you at Summit later in the year. Summit is our big event with like 400 to 500 CINC clients all together, keynote speakers, breakout sessions, a big party, lots of great food, and just getting to know each other in person is always so much better. So whether it's on another webinar or in person, I hope to see you again really soon. And please give us a call if there's absolutely anything we can do. We want to make sure you are as successful as possible. So we're always here to help. And thanks again. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.